The healthcare detective Frank Lalli has written a book for Simon & Schuster about how to get affordable healthcare. Called Your Best Healthcare Now, it is available online, in-store, wherever fine books are sold. Mr. Lalli is also the health correspondent for Parade and the former editor of Money and George magazines, both of which were cool, and I hear he's just gotten even busier. So, what have you been detecting?
What have I been detecting? Well, I started on a kind of sad note. I've got a good friend up in the Lakeville area. His name is Bob, and he's having a really rough time with multiple myeloma. That's the same blood cancer that I have, and I think listeners might recall that I've now had this blood disease for 10 years. I'm in complete remission. I'm in good shape. But Bob, I don't think he's even gotten to 5 years yet, and he's just having a really rough time. And so I was thinking about him, wishing him all the best, and that situation that he's in, it sort of got me thinking about what anybody can do to beat a disease, hold a disease back, get on top of a disease early, that kind of thing. And sooner or later, well, we're not going to get seriously ill, but sooner or later we're going to get ill. So there are things you can do right now to put yourself in the best possible position to get the best care. And it really boils down to it's like 5 basic things, Jill. That's all you need to do. So, all right, I'll spell out each of them in 1 minute here, and then you and I should kick it back and forth and discuss it a little bit. Each one has its nuance. First, and I cannot underscore this enough, you need a first-rate primary doctor. You ain't got one, get one. Okay. Second, you need access to the widest possible network of specialists. You're going to get that through your insurance. It doesn't come cheap. Okay, but you get as wide a network as you possibly can afford. Then, if you get ill or you're worried about being ill, then you've got to find an expert in your disease nearby that you can actually go see. I'll tell you how to do that. Second, and I get calls from people, who've been just diagnosed with leukemia or something, dreaded like that. And they say, gee, I just got diagnosed. Can you tell me about a clinical trial? I want to go right to a clinical trial. Don't do that. Clinical trials are experimental. You don't rush into a clinical trial. But when your approved medicines, the stuff the FDA has already approved, stop working for you, if you're in that situation, which I've been in, okay, at that point, you want to consider all your options with all your trusted doctors, including your primary doctor that you've lined up years before. So, Jill, okay, those are the 5 steps. Simple enough, right?
Seems that way.
5. You do all 5. You've got a good chance of staying ahead of disease or even beating the disease. Okay. We got to start with the primary doctor. Do you have a primary doctor?
No.
Oh, Jill, this is very important for you.
Mm-hmm.
I just gave you a really big hint about the next
Yes,
thing
you did.
need to do. Yes, you need a good primary doctor. I got a couple of requisites for it. First of all, I do not stick with a doctor who does not immediately say, you're my patient. Here's my cell phone number. Here is my email. Call me anytime, night or day. I am here for you. If your doctor is not willing to do that, keep going until you find somebody like that. Now, I've got an internist as my primary doctor. His name is John Rodman. I've mentioned him before. He's got a house up here in Kent. He's got an office in Midtown, New York. And he's terrific. He's terrific at diagnosing illnesses. He's an internist, okay? Not just a family doctor. Joe, I walked in 10 years ago. Here's all I felt. I had a little bit of shortness of breath, walking downhill. Does that make sense to anybody? No, that's a warning sign. Okay. Turns out I had anemia. How do you explain that? I've never had anemia before, and I was a jogger. So why am I short? Why am I short of breath? Well, okay, says John Rodman, out of an abundance of caution. And when you hear that phrase, out of an abundance of caution, let's have an oncologist take a look at you. I think you're fine, but let's have an expert really look closely. Guess what? They diagnosed my cancer essentially a year and a half before it really presented itself. Okay, so I've been ahead of my disease at every step. I would not be ahead of my disease this whole time if it wasn't for my family doctor. My internist, John Rodman. So get a really good primary doctor who's responsive and responsible. Okay. Luckily, I also had access. Remember, he's sending me on to specialists almost immediately. I had access to great doctors through Medicare. Now, what do we hear about Medicare? Oh, no doctors take Medicare. Not in New York. No longer. You can't. That's a waste of money. Nonsense. More than 90% of doctors all over the country take Medicare. Virtually every hospital takes Medicare. Overwhelming majority of specialists take Medicare. Everybody takes Medicare. Come on, please. So you find a Medicare doctor. This is why I'm not a fan of Medicare Advantage plans. They're cheaper. They're cheaper because they have smaller networks of doctors available to them. They negotiate the lowest possible price with a few doctors. That's your network. Sometimes no bigger geographic area than your county. Those are all your doctors. You need somebody special, and you go out of the county or out of the network. Anything out of network is going to cost you a lot of money out of your own pocket. So when you got it, so look, traditional Medicare and a supplement is a far better way to go if you're worried about illness, serious illness, than Medicare Advantage. That's another tip for you. Okay, so get the widest network. But I got to add this, Joe. I mean, the insurance with wide networks obviously costs more money. So you get the widest network you can afford. Okay, let's assume you've done that. And here's the critical point, Joe. Take advantage of the access to your doctors. Now, have you done that, Joe? When you have needed a doctor, have you taken advantage of the doctors that you possibly could see?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's logical that you do that. But there are a lot.
But you and I'm not talking about me, but I am talking about a number of people who it's almost as though you can divide people into, just as with diet, you can divide people into segments. There are people who know what they're supposed to do and do it, and there are people who know what they're supposed to do and don't do it.
Yep.
And I don't really mean to oversimplify, but and I actually wanted to talk to you about this at some point, and this is a digression, but we will get to it. There's almost as though, apart from the regular drugs, medications that have been advertised, there's a whole new group of them. And for anyone who watches TV or is online, they are constantly being barraged with something to take. And what that tends to do is change the mind away from it's like, okay, well, what's the underlying, I should investigate, I should find out about this. Why might I be having these symptoms, rather than, well, I'll just take a such and such for it and leave it there. And
right. So you're getting at the heart of something here. This is, all right, what do you do next? That's a joint decision, you and your doctor. You don't just react to what you see on TV. You've got to consult with somebody who knows the history of that drug and your history, and can say whether or not it is good for you. So, okay, so let's say you're worried about an illness. Maybe something I saw on TV that resonates with you. You should be talking then to someone who is a specialist in your specific illness, okay? But let's say you're diagnosed with something serious like leukemia. There are all kinds of leukemia. You want to be able to be consulting with an expert in that particular type of cancer. So how do you find a person like that? You're not going to find them on TV. You ask your primary doctor to start, any specialists you've already seen to get diagnosed. You want to ask them for recommendations. You might have friends who have something to add. You go on the internet, very tricky, got to be careful out there, a lot of nonsense. But here's what you do. You're looking for something specific. You're looking for the people who have written the latest research on your specific illness, okay? Small cell, B cell, whatever it is. You're looking for those research papers, the people who are on top of the medicine, on top of this illness, on top of the diagnosis, on top of the drugs that work for it. And here's the research paper that shows it. Now, we have a tremendous advantage in the tri-state area. We're not in North Dakota. We're near New York, Boston, Philadelphia, University of Pennsylvania Hospital, the Perelman Center for Advanced Medicine, where I've been treated. That's a drive away. Philadelphia, Johns Hopkins, all within driving distance, or get on a train, you can get there. So you can actually, and you should, see more than one expert. Okay, now people worry, oh, gee, I found the guy and he's the head of department at Dartmouth. He travels all over the world. He's too busy. He'll never see me. I would never call him. Okay, call him. And he will see you, and he'll see you probably within 2 weeks. All right, why would he do that? If somebody has devoted their careers to a specific illness, and then you come in with that specific illness, they want to help you. They want to save your life if it's that serious, okay? You're exactly who they're looking for. Secondly, just to be practical, okay, if not cynical, if you've got a dire illness, if they're an expert, and you're a revenue stream, you mean a lot of money to them. Anyway, look, at the end of the day, call them because they will see you. So I started asking around with my oncologist, the guy I got recommended to from Dr. Rodman. And he described, just this kind of chemo, that kind of chemo, basically poison, right? And I said, what else? I mean, is there anybody doing something specific in multiple myeloma and getting success? And to his credit, he said, yeah, there's a guy up in Boston, Dana-Farber. There's a guy named Ken Anderson. He's getting tremendous success with a pill. It's a brand new pill. All right. It's
worth a trip.
But Jill, it soon became very clear to me that my oncologist, this guy at Columbia Presbyterian, who I like very much, by the way, but he wasn't going to refer me. He wasn't going to make the phone call for me and set up the appointment. And we've never discussed it, but look, he'd be taking me and my $250,000 income stream, okay, away from Columbia Presbyterian, potentially to Dana-Farber.
Right.
He recommended the guy, but he didn't make the phone call for me. You might run into that situation.
But if you do, then and now what is a really good question, and just be aware now what we're going to run out of time. So now what?
All right. Now what is you make the phone call, a cold call, right? And they see you. Now, in my case, I'll tell you a quick lucky story. I make the phone call. I get Lisa, his assistant, on the phone. And I say, I'm Frank Lalli. I've been newly diagnosed with multiple myeloma. I'd like very much to see Dr. Ken Anderson. And she says to me, are you the Frank Lalli? I got to tell you, Jill, not too many people have ever asked me that question.
That's a good story. So that's something that you can look forward to. Is someone might say to you, hey, are you the so-and-so? We would love to see you.
And I said, I don't know. I don't know.
An equally good answer.
She said, well, are you the Frank Lalli who is the editor of George Magazine? I said, yeah, that actually is me. Yes, I did. She said, well, it was my favorite magazine. I love that magazine. I was so sorry when it folded. What can I do for you? 2 weeks later, we're face-to-face with Ken Anderson. Ken Anderson says to me, okay, you don't have to rush into any clinical trial. You don't rush the stem cell. Okay, here's a pill. Take this pill once a day. Let's see if it works for you. 6 years, Jill.
Yeah.
I took a pill a day. That's all I did because I saw the doctors. All right. If we need to get to a bottom line, and we're leaving out some steps here.
And you only have 4 seconds, yeah?
And we really have 4 seconds left. All right, here's the key, guys. You find the best doctors you can, and you make joint decisions. You learn enough about your disease. You're not a scientist. You're never going to know more than the doctor. You don't want to. You won't, okay? But you learn enough to have an informed conversation. And then you make joint decisions about what's best for you now, okay? You do that, you can stay ahead of your disease. You can even beat disease. And Jill, and this one is just specifically for you today. You start with a primary doctor who gives you the email and gives you the telephone number that you can reach them 24/7. And they're there for you, and they'll help you, and you'll beat disease.
Thank you, Frank, the healthcare detective and senior advisor to healthcare.com. Send your questions or concerns about finding affordable healthcare to healthcaredetective@robinhoodradio.com. Frank will try to address as many of your questions as he can on future broadcasts. Also, look for his book, Your Best Healthcare Now, available online, in store, and on my desk.